out in a minute, and it's still not going to be enough. So as you can see, like I said a couple of videos ago, my sort of designs are pretty chair intensive. And I mean, there's still a couple of tables I want to put in. I'm going to build some supports, which is B and then Shift S. And they basically act as if that area wasn't dug out. Let's see, I want that to be in the middle, and that will be in the middle. And you can sort of make it however you want. The better the crafting of the skill of the dwarves, the more fancy it'll look, and the happier dwarves will be to see it. They're like, "Oh my goodness, a genius made this support," and they'll like weep and get a happy thought because of like experiencing the pure godliness of whoever made that particular support. And that's true of like most things. If a godly dwarf makes it, they'll like cry and get a happy thought. Oh, as you can see, we are getting, we're having this mined out. Tetrahedrite, crap, man. Copper's nice, but I want something else. I want actually good materials. So one thing we will need, is rope. Oh yeah, stone blocks. Stone block. Rock block, maybe? Rock block. 10 wooden bucket. We always need buckets, so we'll order up 10 of those, I guess. And rope. But rope, we have to get from pigtails, which comes from our farms, which has to be processed. And processing, you basically always have to do. So I always create it in here, and then juice up 30 at a time. So process plants 30, process plants to barrel 30. Or you can just do it as I've shown you before in the thing directly. And actually, let's do that. So we will actually cancel and cancel, and then we will go to the farmer's workshop and we will process plants. And the nice thing about this is you can set tasks to repeat, which is R, and that will basically keep whenever this comes up to the top again, they'll basically redo it, and the action won't be deleted. The only time the action will be deleted is if whatever it takes to perform this action comes up and you don't have any of the material. So it'll basically come up, it'll say, "We don't have anything to process, you're dumb," and then it'll cancel it out, and you'll cry yourself to sleep, but you'll know that you need to get something done. So we're basically at a severe lack of manpower right now, which is kind of a problem. But what can you do? What can you do? This is coming along nicely, though. I like how that line is so clean. So as you saw, I created these beds, and then I created rooms from them. So I didn't actually assign these beds. Basically, if you just create a room off of a bed and don't assign it, so here we just created a dormitory, so that means no one actually gets to own these beds. They're just free uses. You come in and there's a free bed, go ahead and pass out on it. Here, when they pass out on the beds, they basically claim it, and as you can see here, the current owners are 2 people, so that's a couple. Like, that's a 2 dwarves who are married in some sort of sense. So they will actually share those beds, and hopefully it'll keep them from claiming other beds. They usually don't go out and claim more beds if they already own one. The only time that I've ever seen beds doubling up is when mayors are like, "I want a bed," but they've already claimed one, but they want a fancy one, and I usually make like a mayor's bed and a sheriff's bed and that sort of thing. So if they've already claimed one and then you give them one, they'll have 2. So sometimes you have to like track down their other bed and kick them out, even though they can be reelected. It's kind of a pain in the butt. I'm going to queue up brewing and meals because now we have meat and it's starting to go to waste, so we basically want those to get underway. We need some dwarves. We need a big migration. Now I will show you how I do strip mining. I might make this level strip mining. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. What I need is useful metals. Bitimous, coal, and lignite are basically the two that I always look for. Those are the two that become... we've got more beds. So I'm going to go ahead and continue placing these beds, and then we will create rooms out of them so dwarves can sleep. And so, I mean, it's nice that we have the dormitory, but this way they basically own something and they feel happier and blah, blah, blah. Rock crafts are complete. We're shipping in beds, as you can see. So then, since a bed has been placed, I resized the room just so it would take up to where the door would be, because the door would naturally stop that, and you can't actually progress a room ownership past a door. So I basically resized it to where the door would be, and then I don't ever assign it unless I'm making it for someone specific, like a mayor or a sheriff or someone like that. Because eventually when your fortress grows, they'll be like, we want a fancy pants thingy-majig. And you're like, oh god. And you always have to fill those, because otherwise they get upset, and they can't do their job, and things break down, and then they complain, and then when they complain, you'll eventually have a jail, and then they will take it out on the other dwarves. Like, you can have a hammer, which I never actually create a hammerer for our fortress, just because hammers are bad. They're basically like vigilante justice. They're basically a military dwarf who gets a war hammer, and when people mess up in the law, he basically goes out and wails on them. So that's a problem. He'll just like literally beat a dwarf to death. And it's no good. I need rock tables. I need like 20 rock tables. I'm gonna need more chairs too. Wooden chair. 20. Okay. So our video's long, but this is a very important part. This is basically what you're ordering up from your cohorts at Mountainholmes. So you basically begin discussion. Okay, so here's a couple of things to notice. There are, sort of like the trading, you move through with plus and minus on this particular menu. This is basically everything in the universe that could be included there. You basically, whenever you move down, you're automatically in this menu, which can be navigated with up and down. And then there's a priority here over there. So, I never actually order any cloth or leather, because they almost always bring that with them. And so whenever you adjust this, so this basically shows you, so this means you have no preference, they can bring it or not, whatever. This means that you would like it, but it's not necessarily a priority. This means it's kind of important. This means we would really like this, and this means, holy crap, bring it, and you will be rich. So basically, something to note is this also is a multiplier. So the higher this is, the more expensive the good will become, but the more likely it'll be to appear. So if it's high priority, that's like a times 10 multiplier or something. I don't know what the actual multiplier is. It's not that big, but it's still, like, on really expensive items, even like 5% or something adds up really quick. So you always have to be cognizant of that. But there's sort of cheap stuff you can do. So on wood is very, very cheap. Like, you can buy a log for like 2 turtle bucks or 3 turtle bucks or something like that. So it's pretty cheap. So I always max out all of these, because I always need wood. And if you get a huge multiplier on a really low number, it's obviously not going to affect its price that much. So it might become, like, it might go from 2 to 5 or something, or 3 to 5. So we can basically still get a lot of lumber for out much effort. Here are metal bars. You can basically craft these. If you're having a severe problem of like getting materials, like if you just can't get iron and you want to make steel, you can definitely import those. And then like I think pig iron is in here, maybe not. No, you might have to... Oh yeah, no, there's pig iron. So you can always import those and then like sort of finish the process yourself and create steel. But bars tend to be expensive, and obviously the more you increase this, the higher the price is going to be for them to deliver it. So I only ever order these when I know I can't get something. But I'll show you something a little bit cheaty a little bit later. So I would recommend not ordering any of those unless you really, 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 really need it. Like maybe in a couple of years, maybe 2 years, if you still haven't gotten any iron. You might want to consider ordering that. You can always order just steel, but steel is very much more expensive than iron. So I would either recommend ordering in the parts to create your own steel, or if you're just so rich you don't give a crap, then go ahead and just order steel. I never order gems because they aren't completely useful. Sometimes I sort of give some priority to seeds. It's basically what you want. That way you can always make sure that you've got seeds of what you want. Sweet pods and dimple cups tend to not be so useful, so I don't ever order those. You can always order these, but remember, the multiplier will break your bank. Weapons. I tend to not order weapons just because they make it out of a variety of materials, and I like things to be very uniform. But I would not order these because if they even have a little bit of quality to them, the price jumps a lot. So, training weapons. These will be useful later when we actually do our part about military. I would not actually order any of these because they are basically wood, and you can make those yourself really easy. Bolts. Maybe a little bit. I would put it at a low priority, if anything, that way, because they tend to bring metal bolts, and metal bolts tend to be expensive, so any sort of high multiplier on that will cause it to be really expensive. But obviously, like, a steel bolt is going to do a lot more damage than, like, a wooden bolt. So if you happen to want bolts to kill things that are heavily armored or really big, you might actually want to buy some of those, or create them yourself. But it can be expensive either to buy or create, so that's always something. Trap components, we aren't going to get any of those because we actually have sand, which we can turn to glass, so we can actually make any of these out of glass that we want, so we basically have an infinite supply if we just have the fuel for it. So we will go ahead and skip that. Picks, they tend to bring those, or you can create them. I tend to not order any of those. I never really order any of these either because once you get your pigtails going, you can do most of this in terms of like coats and vests and robes, and then your goal is to actually create your own sort of like breastplate and leather armor, which the leather armor I usually do from buying up all of their leather, and the breastplates are obviously like a big focus for my game at least, is to get my own sort of metal industry going. And that's sort of true of all of these. Like I said, they make it out of a variety of materials, and they are expensive, so things that come in twos, like when you make them, they're made in duplicate. Like, they can have a left shoe and a right shoe, so when you make them, they actually come in their pair, but when they deliver them, you actually have to make sure that you're buying both the left boot and the right boot, unless you just want to have someone have one metal boot or one metal glove, and that's weird. So I would not recommend ordering any of those. Shields, not really useful. Toys and instruments, those are the things you basically sell to get money. So unless you're hoping that they'll bring a metal thing that you can melt down, I wouldn't necessarily order any of those. I'm actually going to put some priority on dogs, because, as you may recall, ours was murdered by a sloth bear, so we would like one of those to be delivered, please and thank you. In the early game, when I first started playing, I always had problem with alcohol. Like, my dwarves were always so pissed off because I could not, for the life of me, order alcohol or create it. So I'm like, bring me alcohol, please, please. So these days, I never ever really have a problem with it, but it's always nice to be able to be like, sure, let's shore up our supply. So cheeses, I would never order. They usually tend to bring those, and they're not super useful anyway. In powders, most of these, obviously, you can get through processing of your own sort of crops. The only one I would consider ordering, and I would put a medium priority on it, is gypsum plaster. This takes specific types of stone, and you don't always have those, so and it's required for your hospital, so I would say definitely put some priority on that and see if you can't get it delivered. A lot of these, like blood and ichor and venom, these are used in like alchemy, but alchemy, at least as far as I know, is not very fleshed out at the moment. So while you can order these, and some of these are incredibly expensive, like gnome blight ichor or something is like one of the most expensive things in the game. But obviously, like, there's no sort of use for it because alchemy hasn't been implemented. So a lot of this is pretty cool, and you can actually, there's ways to harvest it yourself, but it's incredibly difficult, and it doesn't make much sense, so I tend to not order any of those. I mean, you can if you want. You can always order meat or fish. You can always order plump helmets. I always put, like, maybe a low priority. They tend to bring those anyway. Okay, so here is some cheatiness that I... so basically, you can order any sort of, like, stone or that sort of thing that you want. So if you remember the two that I told you that bitimous coal, which is right here, and lignite. So these two become fuels. So you can basically import your own fuels. So because I think this one basically transfers to a net gain of 5, and this one transfers to a net gain of 8. So both of those are pretty valuable, and I don't think they come across as very expensive, so I always order them up. You tend to not get a ton of them in when they deliver them, even at high priority, but it's always nice to get like a little bit boost. Get a couple of those, and I mean, it'll shore up your sort of your supply. And then if you're also looking for iron that you just want to smelt yourself, hematite is known for its iron, and you can look up all of these in the Dwarf Fortress wiki, and it should tell you about that. So I'm gonna try and speed it up here because I never order any barrels. All of this will usually come just on its own. I would not recommend ordering any of those. Barrels again comes on its own, and yeah, so I wouldn't order any of those. Flasks, water scans, don't ever order any of these. Sand you might consider ordering if you don't have any in your sort of world. In mine I do, so I would not order any of this myself. Glass I always order, just because it's basically an easy way to get gems, and it's always even cheap, so I always bring that. Here is another way you can get some fuel. Charcoal and coke are basically the two that you use for smelting. Kilns, smelters, blacksmith shops, they all use those, so you can order up both of them and have them bring it, and that's another way to sort of supplement your supply if you only have trees to use as fuel, which in some cases that's like your only supply, so trees become even that much more valuable because you basically have to convert all of them to a fuel, and it is expensive. And then it's just basically a bunch of random other stuff. All of this I would not recommend ordering, because you can create all of these from wood. These, unless you are like really, so miscellaneous is important. Buckets, you can create splints, crutches. Eggs you can create by making nest boxes. All of these yarns will come on their own. Tools you can create all very easily from stone. And then clay, this is another one. If you want to, if you don't have any in your biome, you can always order it here. I may as well. I don't have any clay, I have sand, so I'm gonna go ahead and order it. So when you're done selecting all of what you want and at the levels that you want it, you can always review. So you're like, oh no, I would really like them to deliver that and that and that. So then you can always view your stockpile if you want to see where you're at on them. This is the controls, and when you're done, you hit escape, and he will basically say a couple of other things here. And let's hope it's quick because I am running quite long. Come on, come on, come on, come on. He's processing plants, which is good. Our dwarves are very busy. We have 0 idlers. Do we have more beds? We don't. But I know that a bunch of these need to be made into rooms. And it's always a complex, obviously, because I get these in sort of waves. Like right now, I don't have all the beds to finish this off. So I always go through and check and make sure that all the beds are assigned, because if they're not, it'll basically just be a bed that's sitting there and it's gone to waste. So I always have to go back and check and make sure that nothing's messed up. But anyways, he'll basically say a couple of things, like he'll show you... Oh, come on, man. Hurry up. You're killing me here. I'll drink my coffee to calm down. And as you can see, we're still kind of low on wood. I mean, low, I mean that's kind of a giant stockpile, so it might not be the most... might not be incredibly out of it. You can, if you're always looking for where trees are, you can always jump up one level and see sort of where these little slash marks appear, and that basically shows you where trees are. So there's a bunch over by the water here, so we're going to go ahead and chop those down. And this is, all of this is where our creatures have been eating, and they've basically chewed away the grass and it's exposed sand beneath it. That'll eventually grow back when it rains, or... As you can see, the sort of, the well is half done here. It'll be a little bit, it'll finish when they actually dig this out, because the only way to access this part of it is through here. So they have to dig, and then they come in here, and then they channel down. So that is something as well. Come on, hurry up and finish the negotiations. Freaking crap, See, this is a problem when you're in the early game, because your dwarves are so busy. They basically won't finish their meeting until your expedition leader, your mayor, or whatever has stopped. So sometimes what you can do, if you're tired of waiting, is you can chop off, like, you can go to him and kill some of his laborers. Then he'll basically just hang around, and when he does, they'll have their meeting. So... Man, I need dwarves bad. We've got lots of stuff that needs to be done. Lots and lots. But things are going pretty well. As you can see, these are on repeat and they haven't stopped. We've been brewing drinks, and hopefully we've been processing sort of... actually, what I'm going to order right now is wooden bolts as well. I'm going to order 30 of those and some wooden crossbow bolts, or wooden crossbows. We'll order 5 of those. They're not the most quality, but it basically helps your hunters get stuff killed, which turns into food, which is delicious and awesome. But anyways, I'm not going to wait forever for this guy, because that's crap, so we will go ahead and end it here. If you have found this helpful, go ahead and click like and subscribe. Maybe drop a comment about what you liked, what you didn't like. I always appreciate any of those comments. So I have been Draxxinusam. This has been Dwarf Fortress, and I would like to say thank you for watching. I appreciate the views, and we will go ahead and we will see you next time here in Dwarf Fortress. Thanks for watching, gamers.